YouTube, how we doing, family? It's your boy, Yo. And there's another episode of Yo Hoops. We go through every NBA game every day. Today's Friday, February 21st, and we have a 9-game NBA card. I'm going to walk you through every game, let you know which sides I like, and stick around because I'll let you know my highlighted play of the day. I do this every day for free, so make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your favorite game in the comment section below. Without further ado, let me get into today's recap. Recapping yesterday, we went 0-2 on our highlighted plays of the day. First, we took the Memphis Grizzlies laying 2.5 in Indiana against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers won the second quarter by 24 points, and they didn't look back. Miles Turner was out there blocking shots, cleaning the glass, and ultimately, Indiana won the game by 14 points. Next, we took the Denver Nuggets laying 16 against the Charlotte Hornets. I thought it was a good spot for Denver. The Hornets were flying in on the second leg of a back-to-back, but ultimately the Nuggets won the game by 14 points. We were one bucket away from a cover. The Hornets did keep it competitive all game, so there were live betting opportunities. I did actually cash big in this one with Nuggets laying 10.5 in the first quarter. But overall, I'm sick dropping both of the highlighted plays. February's been a rough one for me, guys. This has been one of my toughest months I've had in a long time, but let's go get back in that win column. I'm going to take it one win at a time. Let's go get one today. Without further ado, let me get into today's games. In our first matchup of the evening, we have the Memphis Grizzlies in Orlando taking on the Orlando Magic. Grizzlies are laying 3.5 points, and the total is 225. Both of these squads do come into this one on the second leg of back-to-backs. We know Memphis looked flat yesterday. They were our play of the day, and they got aired out by the Pacers in Indiana. Now they fly to Orlando on no rest. The Magic, on the other side, actually looked impressive yesterday. They came back from a double-digit deficit to beat the Hawks in Atlanta. It did surprise me to see the Magic finally hooping. In this one, I'm looking at the total, though. We already know both of these teams are defensive-minded. The Magic have the number 2 ranked defense in the league currently, and the Grizzlies have the number 7 ranked defense. These teams are 3-2 to this under in their last 5 meetings, and here with both teams on no rest, I think we see a lot of defense being played. We're taking the under 225 as our first selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Milwaukee Bucks in Washington taking on the Washington Wizards. Bucks are laying 6 points, and the total is 229.5. This line is a bit fishy. It opened at Bucks laying 8, moved down to 7, and now it's down to 6. Looking at the injury reports, the Bucks have no players listed as well. The Wizards will be without Justin Champagnie, Malcolm Brogdon, and Saddiq Bey. The Bucks do fly to DC here on the second leg of a back-to-back, and I mentioned in their game last night against the Clippers that Giannis and Dame were both questionable. We wanted to see if they played yesterday, so here on no rest, I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them or both of them sit. I do want to see how the injury report develops, but I see a path for the Wizards here. They've been competitive recently. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5, and they lost to the Pacers by just 4 points in their last meeting. I think they even have a chance to win this game outright, but I want the points in my back pocket. We're taking the Wizards +6 as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the New York Knicks in Cleveland taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs are laying 8.5 points, and the total is 241. A Chrysler looks like a Phantom until the Phantom pulls up. I'm used to seeing the Knicks laying these big spreads. Now, going head-to-head with Cleveland, they got turned into 8.5-point dogs. That tells me a lot about where the books have these two teams at this point in the season. Rather than looking at a side here, I'm looking at a total. I see this as a competitive rivalry-style game, and in those matchups, we typically see a lot of defense being played. Looking at the previous meetings between these two teams, 9 out of their last 10 meetings have gone under this total. The under has cashed in the last 9 straight meetings between the Cavs and the Knicks. The total has been moving up throughout the morning. It was at 239.5 just earlier, so that does concern me in the slightest bit, but it just gives us more points on our side. We're taking the under 241 as our highlighted selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Miami Heat in Toronto taking on the Toronto Raptors. Heat are laying 3 points, and the total is 219.5. We already know what the Raptors do as home underdogs. On the season, they're now 16, 8, and 1 against the spread in this spot, second best in the league as home dogs. Miami, on the other side, they're the second worst road favorites in the league. They're now 3 and 10 against the spread in this spot. So this is a tale of two different teams. I do like the new additions to Miami, Alec Burks, Kyle Anderson, Andrew Wiggins, but it looks like the chemistry hasn't necessarily clicked for them yet. The Raptors are still without Jacob Puerto, but they aren't lacking in size with players like Scotty Barnes and Chris Boucher. I see this as a competitive matchup, but with the way that the Raptors have played at home in Canada this season, I have to lean towards them. We're taking the Raptors plus the 3 points as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves in Houston taking on the Houston Rockets. Rockets are laying 3.5 points, and the total is 218.5. This is a tough one for me because while the Wolves have been playing well recently, they do come into this one pretty banged up. So Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert are all questionable, and the Wolves will still be without Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. On the other side, Houston will be without Fred VanVleet and Cody Zeller. This is a decent spot for the Wolves. They're 6 and 3 against the spread as road underdogs, but like I said, the lengthy injury report does concern me. Houston over the last few seasons has printed at home. This season, they aren't even profitable. They're just 9 and 12 against the spread, but I think with a banged up Wolves team coming into Houston here, they can stack a home cover. We're taking the Rockets laying the 3.5 as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Detroit Pistons in San Antonio taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Pistons are laying 4.5 points, and the total is 233.5. Yesterday, Wemby was sidelined for the season due to a blood clot. That's the worst news I've heard in a long time. I'm praying for his health and that he has a full recovery. That's horrible to hear. He was going to be a generational talent, arguably the best player in the league. So to see him sidelined for an indefinite amount, I hated to see it. While this is a good spot for the Pistons and I would normally look in their direction, I think the Spurs rally for Wemby. I know everyone in that locker room is motivated to hope for their brother, and I think the Spurs find a way to win this game outright. I'll take the points in my back pocket. We're taking the Spurs plus the 4.5 as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the New Orleans Pelicans in Dallas taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Mavs are laying 5.5 points, and the total is 237. The Mavericks have been hooping since trading AD. They've now covered against the spread in 6 straight meetings, but their injury report doesn't get much better here. The Mavs will be without Daniel Gafford, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Caleb Martin. Dwight Powell is doubtful, and then PJ Washington is questionable. So like I said, extremely banged up. It's basically Kyrie and the boys going in this one. On the Pelicans side, they'll be without DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Aves Messi, and Brandon Boston. While the Mavs have been covering at a high clip against the spread, it's usually because they're getting points in their back pocket. They typically don't win games by margin. These two teams last faced off on January 29th of this year, and the Mavs won 137 to 136. So like I was saying, when they win games, they win by 2 or 3 points. In that game, Dallas had most of their guys going too. Here, banged up, I think the Pelicans have a legitimate shot to win this game outright. We're taking the Pelicans plus 5.5 as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our next matchup, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder in Utah taking on the Utah Jazz. Thunder are laying 15 points, and the total is 236.5. This isn't my favorite game on the board by any stretch of the imagination. I'm seeing manipulation going on both with the injury reports and the game line. Looking at the IR, the Jazz have Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson both listed, but sources say they'll likely go. So don't get confused. Jordan Clarkson and Walker Kessler will be playing in this one. The Jazz will be without Colin Sexton, though. And then the Thunder are supposed to be at full strength here, but like I said, keep an eye on how the IRs develop. If Walker Kessler was sitting, I'd be more confident to lay such a huge number against the Jazz in Utah. I still do lean towards the Thunder, but Walker is one of the best rim protectors in the league, and I think he will deter some of what the Thunder are trying to do in the paint. That being said, even with Walker in, I do believe that the Thunder are 15 points better than the Jazz. So I lean towards the Thunder laying the 15 as our next selection of today. Let's move. In our last and final matchup of the evening, we have the Golden State Warriors in Sacramento taking on the Sacramento Kings. Warriors are laying 2.5 points, and the total is 237. Both teams come into this one at full strength. This will be a fun one to watch. I'll definitely be tuned in. The Kings have been a tough team for me to figure out. They win when they're supposed to lose, and they lose when they're supposed to win. On the other side, the New Look Warriors have impressed me. They just aired out the Rockets right before the All-Star break. It looks like Jimmy Butler and Draymond are feeding off of each other. I can see a path for the Kings to compete in this one, but that's not where I want to put my money. The Kings did win the last meeting between the Warriors 123 to 117 on January 22nd of this year, but I can't now expect them to do it twice in a row against an upgraded Warriors team. They're literally better than they were in January. So we're taking the Warriors laying the 2.5 as our last and final selection of the evening. And that's going to conclude today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I was shocked to drop both highlighted plays yesterday, but we still have a week in the month. I'm going to have more than one highlighted play on a lot of those days, and I'm trying to get us back, at least minimize the damage on the month. So rock with me. Like I always say, make sure you guys are keeping an eye live too, because a lot of these games like the Nuggets yesterday was a easy cash. They were giving the discounted line because the Hornets were competitive throughout the game. So make sure you guys can watch the game and place these live bets. You don't have to take the lines that I'm taking, but I'm looking to get us back. So again, thank you for tuning in. I do this every day for free. So make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy, Yo. And until the next one, I'm going to catch y'all. Peace.